This is Barry from Cruising Authority at cruisetalkshow.com. The Forbidden City, the Great Wall of China, Terracotta Warriors. The views are spectacular, amazing, fantastic.
This is amazing.
Smooth seas. Welcome to Cruising Authority at cruisetalkshow.com. I'm your host, Barry Vaudrin, with a special presentation of our recent cruise tour to China with Viking River Cruises. After a 12-hour flight from Chicago to Beijing, we were met at the airport by our guide, Daniel, who was with us during the entire trip. Our hotel in Beijing was amazing. Terry and I thought there was a mistake because our suite was exquisite. Our first tour in Beijing was of Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden City. I knew we were going to be doing a lot of walking, so I was somewhat prepared to see the massive compound called the Forbidden City, where the Emperor used to live. This incredible palace was completed in 1420 and is the largest palace complex in the world with 9,999 rooms protected by a moat and a huge wall. There seemed to be courtyard after courtyard and palace after palace. I mean, this place was spectacular. And to think it was once occupied by only the emperor and his dignitaries. That same day, we also visited the Summer Palace. If the Forbidden City wasn't enough space for the emperor, he could vacation at the Summer Palace. Oh, to be an emperor and have the resources to build such lavish compounds and palaces to live in. We experienced dinner and a show in Beijing where all the dignitaries and presidents visit when they're in China. We had the famous Peking duck and then saw the Peking opera. On this evening, the show was about the Monkey King. The singing was a bit screechy, but this was a classic Chinese opera. Both my wife and I enjoyed the dinner and the opera this evening. One of the highlights of our cruise tour to China was, of course, our visit to the incredible Great Wall of China. My wife and I climbed all the way up the more challenging section of the wall because we were told the photo opportunities were better. My wife and I really enjoyed this visit to the Great Wall, and then we realized we needed to get back to our bus to meet up with the rest of our group. The visit was a bit short, but very worthwhile. What an amazing sight to see and experience. I want to mention that it was a pleasure touring all the sites with our guide Daniel. And all the guides with Viking River Cruises in China seem to use a state-of-the-art piece of equipment called a Vox, where everyone in our group wear this Vox receiver around our neck. And then we used a little earpiece to hear our guide. So no matter where we were, we could always hear our guide's voice through our Vox receiver device. This allowed me to sway from the group and take lots of pictures and still hear our guide talk about whatever we were seeing. It was very convenient as opposed to our guide yelling through a megaphone. We got to ride in a rickshaw and visit a Hutong, which is basically a traditional Chinese neighborhood. We even visited someone's home. This home was over 100 years old, and the family has lived there for several generations. This family had a special talent of painting pictures in little jars. Kind of like a ship in a bottle, only they paint the inside of the jar. Next, we visited a silk factory where they make beautiful silk rugs. We discovered where the term magic carpet came from. Here, watch this.
Oh my God.
So brilliant, right? Why? Because it's made of different kinds of materials. Because it's neat.
After 3 days in Beijing, we flew to Xi'an. Both my wife Terry and I enjoyed the very colorful and musical Tang Dynasty show in Xi'an. I really appreciate the quality of this show from a production point of view. The highlight, however, of our visit to Xi'an was the amazing Terracotta Army Museum. Wow, I was truly impressed by this museum. I know that during this trip to China, and on many of our videos, you'll hear both my wife and I use adjectives like amazing and incredible. Well, when you see firsthand this ancient terracotta army created over 2,200 years ago, there are few words to describe what you see in this still active dig site in Xi'an. Archaeologists and paleontologists are still digging and discovering more artifacts in this area. And they recently discovered there are over 600 burial pits around the emperor's tomb. And what's really impressive is that they haven't even touched the emperor's tomb itself, which is still buried under a small mountain near the Terracotta Army. Again, I could have spent more time here at the Terracotta Museum, but there was still so much to see and do. Next, we flew to Chongqing, where we finally boarded the Viking Century Sun. This vessel was our home for 5 nights as we cruised down the legendary Yangtze River. The Viking Century Sun was a very comfortable vessel with 6 decks. She carries up to 300 passengers, and the dining on board was excellent. One night, the crew put together a nice little show for us in the observation lounge on Deck 5. They had a magician and dancers and singers, all packed into an hour-long show. Other than the cruise show, there wasn't much entertainment like you would see on most cruise ships, because those who go on the Yangtze River cruise are there to see the culture up close and personal. Our first port visit was Shibozai, where we visited a 400-year-old pagoda. This was another highlight of the trip for me. Even though it was very hot and humid that day, I enjoyed climbing up into the very top of the pagoda. My wife and I even crossed over the legendary bridge, where if you can make it across in only 4 steps or less, you will have good luck. I did it in 3 steps. Not that I needed good luck. The next day we visited Hutong and the Wu Gorges, or the Lesser Three Gorges, which was absolutely beautiful. We cruised in a smaller boat 20 miles into the Lesser Three Gorges and enjoyed the amazing scenery. That evening, we went through the locks at the Three Gorges Dam, which took about 4 hours. The next day, we got to see the world's largest dam, the Three Gorges Dam, which was, of course, spectacular. Yet another highlight for the trip, for everyone in our group, was our visit to Qingzhou, where we visited a local elementary school that is sponsored by Viking River Cruises. It was nice to see how Viking River Cruises gives back to the community by sponsoring this school. The kids were so fun to be with, and we got to visit them in their classroom. We disembarked the Viking Century Sun in Wuhan after 5 wonderful nights on board. I was particularly fascinated by this next museum with a 2,400-year-old musical instrument that was discovered in the tomb of a wealthy man. First, we heard a short concert where musicians played an exact replica of this ancient 2,400-year-old musical instrument consisting of a number of different-sized bells. After this short concert, we walked through the museum and saw the actual instrument, which I thought was in remarkable condition after having been buried for over 2,400 years. Our next destination was Shanghai, where we would spend 2 nights before flying home. We went on a wonderful tour of old Shanghai and a garden from the Ming Dynasty. Later, my wife and I took a boat trip on the Bund to see the modern skyline of Shanghai. Finally, we enjoyed a farewell dinner before experiencing firsthand the incredible Chinese acrobatic show. I have no idea how some of these young people are able to bend like rubber. It's like they must have had their spine removed or something in order to bend like they did. And then we saw incredible acts of balance. This show was a great way to conclude our wonderful and epic journey to China. Of course, I had to experience the colorful night lights of Shanghai on our final evening. I hope you enjoyed this video overview of our epic journey to China with Viking River Cruises. Be sure to check out our website at www.amazingchinacruise.com, where you'll see hundreds of photos and many video interviews. And of course, you can listen to our talk show where I have 3 episodes dedicated to our trip to China. If you are ever considering a trip to China, be sure to contact me and email me at cruisetalkshow@aol.com or visit my website at www.amazingchinacruise.com, and I'll personally make sure to get you in touch with someone who can offer you the best possible rates with Viking River Cruises. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I want to wish you smooth seas.